Welcome to Trade Pro. This is the release video and tutorial video for the newest Trade Pro trading strategy script. This is number 12 now, so 12 trading strategy scripts released and 2 indicators as well. Now, these are only available on the Patreon page, so yes, they cost money, and no, you don't need to spend any money if you want to be a profitable trader. These are just tools to help out, so don't feel like you need to buy them, especially if you're low on funds. I would urge you not to spend money, okay? So don't want to be pressuring anyone, but what I'm going to do is go over all of the different parts of the trading strategy script and talk about the strategy it's using and just the different customizable parts within it. All right, so let's get into things. So let's talk about what strategy this script is actually using, and I do have a video on it called the New Highest Profit Trading Strategy with Proven Results, Holy Grail Strategy. And I didn't actually name it the Holy Grail Strategy myself. That was a name given to it by the original creator of the strategy. And kind of a fun fact is apparently he named it the Holy Grail Strategy as a joke because there is no such thing as a Holy Grail trading strategy, and he kind of was poking fun at the trading industry as a whole. And that's just something I read online, so don't quote me on that. But another thing I read was that it's actually a widely known strategy, like it's a quite widely known within the trading industry. And another thing, even more interesting than those, is they claim that it works profitably on any time frame and any market. So what I'm going to do is show it on Euro against the US dollar, Bitcoin, and Tesla, so we can cover Forex, cryptocurrency, and stock. So you guys can kind of get a gauge for how well it works on different assets. And that way you can, have a more fair look at it and kind of gauge for yourself if you think it's valuable. But what I'll do is go over the entry criteria. So just going to show how it's taking entries, how it's placing the stop loss, how it is doing take profit. And then I'll get into all the different customizable features within the settings, as there are many. And yeah, we'll get through this. Let's get into things. All right, so here's a very clear example with the strategy, a very good example, so it can really demonstrate what the actual strategy it's using is. And let's talk about the rules. So the first thing is the ADX indicator needs to go over the 30 level, and this has standard settings. You can of course configure within the script the different settings, and we'll go over more of that later, but you can see this crosses up over the 30 level, and then it's going to be looking for that first pullback into the 20 period exponential moving average that goes through the 20 period exponential moving average but does not close below it. So you can see on this candle right here, the candle wicks through the 20 period exponential moving average and does not close below it. That is the point where a buy stop order will be placed above that wicked candle. So if price continues to trade over the high of that wicking candle, then that buy stop order will be entered. So you can see that's where the entry is, right here at this green line, right over that wicking candle. You can see it says enter long right here on this candle. And the stop loss will be placed just below that wicking candle. Essentially what it's going to do from there is trail the stop loss at the 20 period exponential moving average, but only start doing that once the high before the pullback began is taken out. So the pivot high right back here, you can see at this blue line is where that started to trail the stop loss at the 20 period exponential moving average, and you can see it continues to trail it until it gets stopped out in profit up here on this trade. Okay, so that's a very clear trading example of the basic strategy. Now, an important thing to talk about with the trading view back testing results is the potential for dubious trades. So here we have 8 dubious trades detected, and I'll talk about what that means. It's all written out here. So let's talk about this. These are the trades that the strategy identified as potentially having the wrong outcome registered by TradingView's broker emulator. This includes all trades that either had its entry candle touch the take profit or stop loss lines, or it had its exit candle touch both the take profit and stop loss lines. When such an event occurs, TradingView's broker emulator takes a best guess at which of the lines, take profit or stop loss, got hit first, but sometimes it takes the wrong guess. please open the strategy tester or list of trades tab and click on each trade that is displayed in the list of dubious trades to confirm whether TradingView was able to record the outcome accurately. To confirm the outcome, draw 2 horizontal lines manually at the take profit / stop loss and 1 at the entry price level. Then hide the strategy, drop down to a lower time frame, and see how the candles played out in reality. It is also a good idea to draw a vertical line on the entry candle so you can better orient yourself on the lower time frame. If the outcome of your investigation is that the strategy got the result wrong, you will have to account for this error when looking at the final results. So this is going to tell you the 8 dubious trades detected and a list of those trades in the back testing order. So you can see right here, it pops up 13, 27, 36, 50, 57, 64, 77, 108. So those are the trades that in back testing had potential dubious trade activity. So you do want to review those. So with anything like this, you do want to review any of the entry signals that are given just to make sure that the trading script is doing what the strategy is supposed to do, essentially. All right. So that's an important thing to go over. So let's take a look into all the different customizable parts within the settings of this script. So I'll double click here, and up top we see the ADX settings. So I'll just go through one by one all the different settings here. So ADX settings, this is where you can configure the actual settings of the ADX itself, as well as the minimum level that the ADX needs to reach before the script starts looking for a trade entry or a pullback entry into the EMA. So you can choose that. Currently it's at 30, which is just the standard from the basic strategy. Here is a checkbox for deciding whether or not the ADX must reset before entering a new trade. So if the ADX goes over the 30 level, it will start looking for a trade, but it will only look for one trade, and it's not going to take 2 entries during that cross up. The only way it's going to look for another entry is if the ADX goes back down below 30 and then comes back up above 30 again, then it can look for another. Or you can have it allow multiple entries per cross up over your minimum level if you wish, just based on what you check here. Now for the next one, we have the EMA settings. So you can configure the EMA length, and this is the EMA that the price needs to pull back to and wick through to get a potential entry. And if we just change it to 50 for kind of just fun here, we'll just kind of see how the results change with the script. So we'll see profit factor, percent profitable, closed trades, and net profit, see how they do. So you can see profit factor went quite a bit up, but profitability, percent profitable went down, much fewer trades, so much less net profit. So we'll just go back to 20, which is the standard. And of course, you can play around with that. Another thing with that is that you have the checkbox here. So candle crossing the EMA must open on position side, and we can kind of read that here. If enabled, a candle crossing the EMA will only be considered as an entry signal if the candle opened on the side of the position to be taken. So for example, for a long signal to be generated, a candle must cross below the EMA and must not close below it. However, there is no restriction on the opening price of the candle. If the candle opens below the EMA but then closes above it, the strategy will consider the candle having crossed below the EMA, and therefore it will generate a long entry signal. If you had this checkbox enabled, the candle would not be considered a valid entry signal as it opened below the EMA, so not on the position side. So you can decide what you think is best for that one. Now down here, we have a bunch of the standard things that we see on all of the scripts. So I'm not going to go into detail on all of these. I'll just quickly skim through. So you can change if you wanted to enable both long and short entries or just one of the two. Restrict entries to a certain date range, restrict entries to days and time range, so certain days and certain times of day throughout the week. Now, skip the entry if commission is greater than estimated profit, enable an RSI filter, skip entry of previous trades, unrealized profit reaches a percent. And we've gone over all those ones in the past, so I'm not going to go into detail, but down here we have some more important things that I will go more into detail on. So starting with the stop loss strategy, currently it is set to the Holy Grail strategy based stop loss, meaning it's going to be placing the stop loss above or below the wick that goes through that exponential moving average on that first pullback. So the trigger candle that crosses over the EMA wicks through it, but doesn't close below it or above it, depending on the direction of the trade. It's going to place that stop loss just above or below it if you choose this. And this is just the basic method in the original strategy, but you can also choose that the stop loss is originally placed based on an ATR multiple. So if you want it to be 1 times the ATR away from the entry or 5 times the ATR away from the entry, you can choose to do that. There's also the moving average of the ATR based stop loss placement, percent based stop loss, tick based, or just disabled. So those are the different methods for the stop loss strategy, and you can configure all those specifics down here. Next is the enabling of a dynamic stop loss. So you can have a trailing stop loss and a bunch of different parameters, which I'll get into right now. So let's go through the 3 different types of modes that you have for the dynamic stop loss here. We have move, trail, and move and trail. So we can read about each of those here. For the move option, the stop loss can only be moved once per trade. So for example, you may have the stop loss move to break even at a certain point based on your specifications, and that's the only time the stop loss will be moved. And then you have the trail option where it can move the stop loss any number of times depending on the specifications. So throughout the trade, it's going to continually trail the stop loss as the trade moves based on your specifications. And then there's the move and trail option. So the stop loss can be changed by both the moving and the trailing mechanisms that you set below. So for example, here we have the settings for the move option. So you can move the stop loss a certain amount in the trade's favor once something has happened. So let's say you want to move the stop loss 1 times the risk in the trade's favor. So this means to break even in this case. So move the stop loss to break even after price moves 2% in the trade's favor. Okay, and you could say 2 times the risk in the trade's favor as well if you want, but whatever you like to specify here, you can have the stop loss move that 1 time in the trade's favor once something has happened that you configure here. The next thing we have is the trailing activation level. So this determines when the trailing stop actually is going to be active. When does it start trailing the stop loss? After what condition does that stop loss start trailing and move from its original placement as determined by up here? So originally, when the trade is first opened, the stop loss will be placed based on these parameters up here. And this is going to determine when it's going to start trailing the stop loss. So the basic way that we do that with this specific strategy is after the previous pivots level is reached. So as I was saying, let's say the high before a pullback is taken out to the upside, that's when it's going to start trailing at the 20-period exponential moving average. But you can also choose the other options here, where if we take a look at the first option is always, the trailing will be activated from the moment of opening the position. So it's just going to start trailing the stop loss right away when the trade is opened. And then number 2, after moving the stop loss, so trailing will be activated once the stop loss was moved by the moving mechanism. And then 3, after price moves, so trailing will be activated once the price moves towards the take profit by the amount you specify below. And then 4, as we went over, the standard way, which is just after previous pivots level is reached. So to the trailing activated once the pivot high or low that happened before the pullback candle is reached. So those are the different mechanisms to activate the trailing. And you can set it a few of those things here, such as after price moves a certain percentage, then you can, or ticks or multiplier, then you can have it start trailing. Once this condition is met, you can have the pivot change, so the pivot look back length change, and this will only be for if you're using the previous pivot level as your trailing mechanism or activation level. And then there's a minimum distance and max distance to not allow the trailing to start too soon. So if let's say the trailing wants to start, but price is so close to the trailing stop loss that you
don't want it to actually start trailing yet until there's some distance created between price and the stop loss. You can set a minimum distance based on percentage before the trailing stop loss can begin. Okay. As well as a maximum distance. So then there's the trailing distance right here. So a few different mechanisms here. We have the trailing EMA, trailing ATR, or just a maintaining of distance, and we can read about those here. The maintained distance is once the trailing stop loss is activated, the distance between the stop loss and the trigger price will be recorded, and the distance will be maintained between the price and the stop loss throughout the position. And then there's the trailing of the EMA, which it has set right now, where it's going to be trailing the EMA of your choice, which right now it's at 20, but you can configure whichever EMA you'd like. And then there's the trailing of the ATR, so a certain ATR level can be used to trail the stop loss as well, which can be configured down here. EMA length, ATR multiplier. So different things, different ways to actually trail the stop loss. So that's kind of the dynamic stop loss section. This is the actual original stop loss placement, and this will be all for trailing and moving the stop loss, and kind of that's why it's called the dynamic stop loss section here. Last, we'll have the take profit strategy, which is actually disabled because with this strategy, the stop loss acts as the take profit as well. So you keep trailing the stop loss until you get stopped out in profit or stopped out at a loss. And you can, though, turn this on and have it set to actually take profit at a certain level, whether it be a certain risk level, so risk multiplier. Let's just say you want to take profit once price has gone 3 times your risk in your trade's favor. Or it can be ATR based, moving average of an ATR base, percent base, tick base, or disabled like it is currently. Just because of the trailing stop loss, that's why it's disabled. We don't need a take profit strategy because the strategy is in the stop loss itself. Okay, and there's of course many different configurable parts here, just like the other sections. And then some of the other things down below we have gone over in other videos, such as closing a position early if price crosses a certain moving average, closing a position after a certain number of minutes, closing a position upon reaching the end of the trading session. And then down below, this kind of concludes this section of the video here. Last thing is really just the activating of custom order size settings. And this just means, if you want to see this net profit figure change and kind of see what would happen if I risked 1% of my account equity per trade, then we're going to have, this drawdown here as the max drawdown. We're going to have this net profit over here based on these trades. And then down below, we have some of the alert messages and ways to set up alerts and automation for the trading script. So that pretty much concludes going through all the settings here. The dynamic stop loss section is really cool and something that was recently added to the script. So loving this section, just how versatile it is. But what I'll do is just kind of go through Bitcoin and Euro against the US dollar now and just show you how it kind of varies based on the currency pair. And even though the settings, what I'm doing is just keeping them the same throughout all 3 of these, kind of will show how it's more beneficial to change the settings depending on the asset that you're trading. But let's take a look. All right, so let's take a look at the results with the exact same settings, but on Bitcoin and Euro against the US dollar, so you guys can kind of see how it varies depending on what you're trading. And you can see the results drop significantly on Bitcoin, so only a 1.4 profit factor versus a 1.756 on Tesla. Percent profitable goes way down, net profit goes way down. So it just doesn't perform as well with these settings on the hourly time frame of Bitcoin, and that is to be expected really with any strategy. If we go to Euro, you can actually see the profit factors now below 1, so it's actually not profitable and a little bit in the negative here. So you can see that it really doesn't hold up across multiple markets like what the original creator of the strategy was claiming, or what I found online. They did claim, I don't know if it was the original creator, but where I found this strategy online, they did claim it works profitably across all markets and timeframes. Yes, there are limitations with the strategy script, so it's not like trading it manually, but I do believe that you will have trouble trying to get the same results on multiple markets and different timeframes. So you're best off using all the different customizable parts of the strategy script to kind of get a better result and have some kind of custom settings for the different things. You don't want to just have a one size fits all approach, which I have talked about in other trading strategy script videos. It's just hard to have a one size fits all approach to trading, as when you have something that's completely rigid and is coded into a trading strategy script with no human sort of subjectivity involved, it's really hard to find something that's going to hold up and be profitable on many markets and timeframes. So just wanted to be transparent about that. Not profitable across all markets like what was claimed on the original strategy post online. So yeah, just wanted to show that so you guys can see the variability. You probably need to mess with the settings. It's not just going to be like a one size fits all money printer, as that just doesn't exist. All right. So that's going to conclude the whole video. Thank you guys for watching. I know it's a long video, and thank you so much. Have a nice day.